Step 5, absolutely, in our 5-step process is investing in multiple buckets. And the outcome of this that we're ultimately trying to achieve is income on autopilot or automatic cash flow. Now, to bring us to where we're at to date, remember the steps that we've come to get to this 5. Step 1, stop the leaks by getting on control of your expenses and protecting your profit by paying yourself first. Step 2 was controlling how quickly you get paid. That's controlling the tap. Step 3 was about finally filling the bucket with the right clients that you want to be working with. And that is a factor of how many leads you've got in the pipeline and how good you are at converting them. And it was also a factor of how many clients that you really want to be working with and a factor of how often they're referring like-minded clients to you. That was step 3, filling the bucket. Step 4, remember, was about building a bigger bucket by looking for ways that we can increase how often and how much our existing clients are spending with us. And that all has a massive effect of dramatically increasing your revenue. Why do we want to dramatically increase our revenue? Because we have a system in place to be able to secure our profits. And that means as our revenue increases, so too dramatically does our profit increase. But this is the best bit of it all. I don't want you just to build up a profit war chest. That is only part of the equation. Yes, we can, if you follow the 4 steps before, we can develop an account, which we call a profit war chest, that has a fantastic cash reserve. The first purpose of that cash reserve is your rainy day fund, which in the medical emergencies dramatically increases your chance of survival. But what happens when we get beyond that cash reserve, which I recommend is 3 months of business expenses? What happens when we've got our 3 months of business cash reserves and we start accumulating or amassing a larger and larger amount and we don't know what to do with it? Well, you can eat those seeds. Imagine those are seeds and you can eat them there, or you can plant those seeds and have them grow into something bigger, have them grow into an orchard that produces more seeds. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So let me walk you through the model of how that works in the context of wealth creation. What we have available in our profit war chest can actually be turned into a lot more by the effective use of debt. Now, I know DEBT is a bit of a scary word. I know when I spoke to Jess about this idea the other day, I instantly saw that she had a bad association with the word debt. And I totally get that, because a good portion of the world, even the freaking governments, are in debt. And it's forcing us to people to stay at jobs that they don't want to be really working with because they have no choice but to pay for the credit cards to buy the things that they thought they needed but didn't really. And so there is a bad debt, or there's debt that takes you further away from your goals, and there is a good debt. And a good debt is one that helps accelerate you towards your goals faster. Now, it is a very fine balance, and not everyone needs to use this strategy, but when it's employed in the right circumstance, and that's why you need a good advisor to be batting on your side for you, when you employ this good debt strategy, you are able to essentially turn $1 into $5. Now, how does that work? Well, what you have built up in your profit war chest can be leveraged up into a larger amount through the use of other people's money. Now, before that gets too scary, you think, oh my gosh, I'm stealing money now. I've got $1, I've turned it into $5. It's illegal. Am I going to jail? You think about when you bought your first house. I bought my first place. I was actually, I'm going to say fortunate, but I bought my first place when I was 17. Worked my ass off in my first couple of businesses, and I had money that was there. It was this really cool place down at Benora Point, which is just on the Queensland-New South Wales border. And I think it was $300,000 or something around that, or maybe 200. And I didn't have $300,000, but I had a smaller amount. It was 60 for the sake of this example. So I had $60,000, and I went to the bank, and it was CUA, or Credit Union Australia at the time, and I said, hey, I want to buy this property for $300. I have $60. Would you lend me the difference? And they said, yes, only if you pay our interest rate. And I did. And I was able to turn that $60,000 into $300,000 and buy that first investment property. It was really cool. So when I say profit multiplied by debt, I'm talking about whatever you have available after you've got your rainy day fund and you've got your backup plans. And if you were to consider multiplying that amount out by leveraging other people's money, then we can turn a smaller amount into a larger amount. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, this is when we get to the portion of return on investment. So maybe you might be able to invest in a share portfolio that has a return of a certain amount, whether that's 10%, or sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Or what if you were to invest in property? Say that property that I bought down on the Gold Coast, my idea with that was the intention, was to buy it, have money come in terms of rent, and for that money that was coming in to be at least the amount that I was paying to pay the money back to the bank. That makes sense? And so this return on investment is a percentage, and it's a net percentage. And what I mean by that is it's not the 10% that you might make on the property. It's the 10% you might make on the property minus the 5% that it costs you to borrow that money. That's all. But without getting too caught up in the detail of the numbers, that's why we slowly work you through mastering these numbers over, essentially forever, but specifically over the next 12 months, is this idea. How can we take what we have in our profit cash reserve? How could we make that a larger amount? Why would we want it to be larger? Because if we're making a return, we can turn that larger amount into even more by means of having a vehicle or a bucket that helps us generate more income or more cash flow. And the result of that is wealth. That makes sense? That is a simple formula that we all know, but majority of the world is using against themselves. So what do I mean by that? They've got money that's come in. They're not buying cash flow producing assets. They're buying cars and Mercedes-Benz and high heels and things that they think would be cool, drinks on Friday nights. And it's not money that they have, it's credit cards, which is costing them even more than what the damn thing costs, which means that they're constantly caught up in this expenses cycle and never get a chance to make money work for them. And that's why it's so important to have someone like us there to make you accountable, because humans make very irrational decisions when it comes to money. But wealth is not the answer. And this is where I think we really want to take this to the final step and to another level. Actually, before I go to that bit, let's answer our questions on 17, 18, and 17 and 18. So the question is, what proportion of my debt accelerates me towards growth versus takes me away? 1 is a very low proportion of my debt takes me closer to my goals, which means a lot of my debt's not getting me anywhere. In fact, it could be taking me away. 10 is all my debt is good, which means it helps me generate more cash flow and helps me get me closer to my goals. So put your self-assessment there. Assets. What proportion of my assets consistently put cash into my war chest versus takes it out? 1 being low, I've got none, I got nothing except Charlie, the car out the front, versus 10, I've got a great portfolio of assets that consistently are putting dollars into my pocket. So make your scale or self-assessment there. And this is where the majority of the world goes to, I think, is the big goal is wealth. They say, or even financial planners, they say that your net worth, or you go to a networking event, or rich people compare themselves to each other and go, what's your net worth, or how much are you worth? Like the value of your bank account has something to do with how much you're worth as a human being. And this is where I've got a categorical disagreement with it. It's not about the total value of your assets. It's not about your wealth. There's 2 more steps which help normalize or correct us, and really it unleashes your ability to achieve big goals in your life. And that is how much it costs you to live for a day, and that equals your freedom days. Now, this might be the first time you've heard about this idea of freedom days. So let me start with just the word freedom. Freedom means you have the choice to do what you want, with whom you want, when you want. Does that make sense? So how do we get that freedom, or how do we measure how much of that freedom we actually have? Well, we don't log into our bank account and go, oh, damn, there's $2 million in there. I am free. Because if it costs you $2 million to live, then you're actually nowhere. And that's why you need to take it with this grain of salt called how much it costs for you to live for a day. And why this is important is it helps to know, or helps to correct the fact that $2 million in your bank or $2 million total net assets only tells part of the story. If it costs you a lot to maintain your current lifestyle, then you're not going to have much choice about what you do with your time. However, if there's a lower amount that it costs to maintain your lifestyle and you've got a large amount in your wealth, it means you've got more and more freedom days. That makes sense? And so our goal and the journey that Ben and I are on, and that we're starting a movement to bring our team, bring our family, bring our small business community along, is get you to a point where you have one freedom day, which if you have $100 net worth and it costs you $100 to live, you got one freedom day. Does that make sense? But then we want you to get to 2 freedom days, then 100, then 1,000 freedom days. And ultimately our goal is to get you to a point of infinite freedom days. That means you've got the choice to do what you want, with whom you want, and when you want. Now, it is absolutely possible to get there, and that's what being on top of your numbers is about. When you master the levers or the numbers that I've presented to you in this one page today, that is how we do it.